Good evening and welcome to True Dugman Encounters. I'm your host, Marvin Allen. If you or anybody that you've known have had a sighting or encounter and would like for me to share it on my channel, then please contact me. I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Like, comment, and subscribe. As you all know, I had tragedy in my family and just needed a little time, to clear my head. So I decided to go ahead and upload an encounter or two just to keep me busy and to keep me doing things and not to keep me thinking about that situation. As you all know, this is something I love to do. I haven't been going live lately, but I will be doing that soon. Just trying to upload more encounters. And like I said, anonymity means a lot, and I breaks that for no one. So without further ado, let's jump right into this encounter. Now, in this encounter right here, my eyewitness was 63 years old, and he was recently retired from an analyst job for a major bank in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he was just a cog in a big money machine that facilitated the movement of money across the globe, east to west. You can call it dollars, euros, yen, or rupees. It's all the same. Money flows like a river. It has currents and eddies, up and down, diverted, to and fro, damned and damed. You see the trillions of monetary units flowing across the world and wonder if only a small percentage of it were diverted to help people out, stamp out war, feed the hungry, health care for all that needs it. But that's not the game, and I had to leave it behind. I'm not here to comment on the modern society. I'll leave that to the poets, priests, and politicians who are paid for their words and lies. So I retired to the country, not off the grid, but close enough to see the edge, close enough that I could see the footsteps of those that came before me, the early pioneers and settlers, the wagon tracks and homesteads of a long dead chapter in early America, a time of exploration and discovery, and a time where one man was deemed only a percentage of what makes up another man by law, a time where cotton and tobacco were the currency of the world, and they truly flowed on rivers after being harvested on the backs of slaves. Now, mind you, my best friend name is Galen, and we love to explore the remnants of this bygone era before the march of modern society wipes them out forever. Luckily, I live in the largest and least populated county in Virginia. So there are many abandoned homesteads and graveyards from the late 1700s through the Civil War and subsequent migration out of the war-torn South. Galen always has her voice recorder and camera at the ready. I usually have the video camera. She has gotten many EVPs and filmed countless orbs and ghostly manifestation. I guess you could call it that. She truly puts the ghost hunter shows on TV to shame. In our investigation, her one rule is to run if she says run. No questions asked. A rule that I truly obey, maybe 75% of the time. Now, about 10 miles from my house, up on a hill, sits a large mid-1800s mansion, made inaccessible by lack of driveway and a tangle of thickets of bush and briars. And there were vultures nesting on the chimney. Talk about spooky, of course. Galen was itching to investigate. I would always make up an excuse not to go up there. It was too cold, too wet, too damn scary. But where most men would fear to tread, Galen would go. Come on. And she says it gleefully, which makes it that much more unnerving. So giving in to the inevitable, we go out there to investigate. We park my truck below the house, about 50 yards away. It was a beautiful autumn day in the Appalachians, so I couldn't weasel my way out of it this time. And I had to admit, I was curious as hell to see what was out there. With the smell of sassafras and chimney smoke in the air, we started to make our way through the brush and trees. I was struck by the debris all around. I found a rusted out machete, water bottles, and even an old smashed up video camera. But the shoes, tennis shoes, and old moss covered boots littered the ground. We finally hacked our way up to the front porch. It was magnificent in its decay. The ornate banisters and eaves crafted in a day where craftsmanship ruled and deadlines were an afterthought. The inside was bone dry for the most part. There were many artifacts and clothing from the previous tenants and more shoes. There was even a TV from the 60s. In one of the rooms, which seems to be the last time the house was occupied, we proceeded to explore the mansion's room to room. We separated. Galen with her voice recorder and camera, me with the video. I went out back and found an old well with cement all around it. I looked over the edge, down into the well as best I could. I thought I saw a pair of golden eyes, but it was hard to see. So I adjusted the viewer on the camera and held my hand over the hole in the viewer. I could clearly see a pair of dark golden eyes. glowing in the darkness of the hole. I was just about to cry out to Galen when I heard her shout, "Mike, get up here quick." She was at the back of the house in what looked like the kitchen. Off to the side was another leaf and debris-covered room with a hatched door in the middle. It looked to be the door to a root cellar. So we made our way to the door. It rickled with the stench of death. In the room, it got stronger, closer to the doorway. And there was what looked to be blood leading up to and down the steps. Galen goes, "Look!" At the bottom of the steps was the carcass of a huge deer, I mean huge, lying partially in the dim light of the small amount of sun that made its way in, and particularly in the darkness of the root cellar. I was kind of relieved. I thought to myself, that explains the blood and the stench of death. I was just beginning to tell her, I'm not going down there. I'm not going down there at all. When the carcass suddenly and quickly was dragged out of the light into the dark, one of us screamed. I'm pretty sure it was me. Galen didn't have to yell, run this time. We both bolted out of the room towards the front door. I let her go first out of the front door, down the steps, into the brush. If we were to be eaten, best it was me first. Well, that's what was going through my mind at the time. But I had the keys to the truck. The things you think of when you are about to be eaten. I got about 20 feet into the brush and looked back. That's when I saw that shook me to the core. In the darkness of the doorway, I saw two large red eyes, glowing like brake lights of a semi truck. At night, I froze in my tracks. I could not move. I was able to make out a dark shape in the darkness of the doorway. To me, it looked like a large, huge dog or wolf, jet black with huge pointed ears on the top of his head. It was then the eyes went into a malevolent squint. Like, you know, when somebody would squint their eyes, that's what they did. And then this mofo, and I'ma say it again, this mofo smiled at me. I could see the pure white teeth, the canines on each side, in the front. They weren't rounded out like a Doug's, but went straight across. It had a flat, pudgy snout, and I could see its nostrils flaring up as it lifted its head, as if to get my scent. It then lowered its head and lasered his eyes into mine. It looked at me like it was looking right into my soul. These eyes glowing so red that I initially felt that it had me, that I was his for the taking. I couldn't move. I couldn't do nothing. I dropped to my knees, hanging onto a tree. At this time, Galen yelled, "Mike," with a hint of expiration that broke the hold it had on me. I stood up and then bolted, pressing the door lock on the remote of the truck, and said, "Galen, get into the truck." We got in, fired the ignition, dropped it in the gear, and spun a rooster tail of dirt and gravel 20 feet into the air. "What was that?" Galen said. I replied, "I don't know. Not sure myself. What I had just seen, maybe it was a bobcat," said Galen. And then I said, "You're probably right. Now I'm thinking anything." In this time, she had not seen what I had. She had not looked into the eyes of the devil as I had. Now, who she was, that she wasn't on this list as I was, that's what I somehow felt was true. As we were driving away, Galen says, "Do you think you could go back sometime and get that TV for me, baby?" I looked back in my rearview mirror at the house, fading in the distance, with vultures flying about, wondering what happened to their meal, and said, "Well, maybe some other time." Now, as we was driving, somehow I felt a little relieved at this time. What happened, I will never know. What made me go up there again, I will never know. Now, that was in the fall of 2016. Galen has since moved an hour away, and due to life, we don't get out as often. But although the winter of 2016 into 2017, my encounter was in the back of my mind. Would he hunt me down? Was he scoping me out, waiting for the right time to take me? I live in a single wide trailer next to a lake with my 2 rescue cats, Little Boy and Adam. I let them out at daybreak and bring them in at night. Little boy likes to get up on my roof, as do a family of raccoons. Sometimes at night, the raccoons will run across my roof, freaking me out. I hope it's the raccoons anyway. There have been a couple of times I have smelled the stench. The same stench I smelled in that house. It's the country and things die out in the woods, but I don't go out off my back porch at night. Later on in that spring of 2017, probably late May, I was driving in the country on Graves Bridge Road along the Pig River. It is a gravel road, and I decided to park and get out to look at the fish sunning themselves in the primeval looking shallows of the swampy S-curves of the pig. It was then I thought I heard a baby cry. At least that's what it sounded like to me. I heard it again. It sounded like a demonic baby cry. But I had to check it out. I have to admit, I was scared when I made my way to the sound. I drew my pistol. It's a Taurus Judge that shoots either 5.45 caliber Colts cartridges or 410 shots. I usually keep it loaded with 4 shots. And 1 bullet, I made my way through the scrubs. And what I saw was heartbreaking. It was a dead mountain lion with its cubs lying beside her body. I walked over to the scrawny cub. It growled at me pitifully and tried to run, but it collapsed after only a few feet. The mother was ripped to shreds. Whatever had done this to them, she had fought mightily. About 10 feet over was even sadder sight. It was another cub with this midsection completely eaten out, up to the spine. I assumed this was the brother to what I later found out was his sister cub. She was missing an ear, her eye was closed and covered in dry blood. I went back to my truck and got a Dollar General basket and jean jacket I had in the back. I put my arms into the jacket and used it to lift her up, to put her in the basket. She didn't fight. Somehow, I got the feeling that she knew I was only trying to help her. When I brought her home, my cats freaked out. Adam went running to the back, but little boy was right there, curious as usual. She was bigger than them, but was in such a bad way, she was no threat. I got a warm cloth with water and cleaned her off. She had 4 horizontal gashes on both sides her flanks. They weren't too deep and had scabbed up. I had some cat antibiotics, so I filled the syringe and squirted into her mouth. The weird part was that she never fought me. At first, I did find that odd. I fixed up some warm milk and filled the syringe, and she drank. She drank it eagerly. I fixed up a box and put her in it. I ended up cutting out one side of the box so she could come and go. Little boy would curl up with her. I went ahead and named her Jet because the gashes had healed, but the scars made her just didn't look like she supposed to look. I ended up getting Alpo dog food that she ate heartily. I knew I should have called animal control, but I was afraid they would put her down. So that's why I never called them.